It's been said that following Jesus will cost you something, but not following him will cost you everything. Guys, this is not a normal teaching video. I really just want to speak from my heart today about something that I've been really thinking about quite a bit lately. So, when Jesus was ministering here on earth, he said something startling. There was a large crowd of people who were following him, and he said this in Luke 14. He says, "But don't begin until you count the cost." And then he goes on to give a couple of illustrations, but it's interesting that he's basically saying, hey, I'm laying it all out here. And I'm telling you, if you want to be a follower of mine, if you want to be a true disciple of mine, it's going to cost you something. And so before you enter into this journey of calling yourself a Christ follower, just take some time to count the cost, to consider what it might cost you when you say you want to follow me. Guys, we are living in some critical times where much of what Jesus said was going to happen is happening all around us right now. And now more than ever, it's critical for us as Christians to be willing to be bold and courageous and take a stand for what we say we believe in. But I'm warning you that if you do this, if you take this assignment, if you take this challenge, it is going to cost you something. It is going to cost you something when you take a stand, a bold, courageous stand for the truth. And in this video, I want to share with you 3 things that it is going to cost you inevitably as you become bold about your faith. And to make it easy for you, I've made them all start with the letter P. All right, so here we go. The first is people. When you take a stand for what you believe in, you can be certain that some of your relationships are going to be strained. And this can be very, very difficult depending on the complexity and the longevity of those relationships. These may be relationships that you've had for a very, very long time. It could be friends, it could be family members or whatnot. And, it's easy. It would be easy to just step back and not share what you believe, not say anything related to the truth, and just kind of go along to get along, keep the peace, if you will, without really expressing what you believe. That would be the easy route. But the more difficult route, and what I believe Jesus would have us to do, would be to speak the truth in love. Now, I'm just going to be honest with you guys. From my experience, it doesn't matter how tactful, how kind, how loving you share the truth. It doesn't matter if you have the perfect tone. It doesn't matter. When people are offended by what you share, when you share the truth with people and people are offended or turned off by it, it is going to put a strain on the relationship. And many Christians, we unfortunately value these relationships too much to endure the strain. So once again, as I said earlier, we take the easy way out because we value peace. We value being respected. We value being loved. We value not having anyone say anything negative about us. We love the camaraderie and all of that. We value our relationships so much that we oftentimes avoid difficult conversations that may result in conflict or disagreement because it's easier to shy away from them. Like, I want you to notice that Jesus said something else that was just very, very startling. And I can imagine when he said it, it probably just ruffled some feathers. He says this, he says, "I have come to set a man against his father, a daughter against her mother, and a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law." And then he goes on to say this, "Your enemies will be right in your own household." And then he says this, "If you love your father or mother more than you love me, you are not worthy of being mine. Or if you love your son or daughter more than me, you are not worthy of being mine." Y'all, this is when it gets tough being a Christian, y'all. I'm not gonna lie, that's a hard statement. Just let that sink in for just a moment. Jesus said, when you stand for the truth, it could create a rift. It could create conflict, strife, an enemy, even within your own household. Let me give you an example of this. Maybe you're a parent and your child identifies as LGBTQ, and maybe they invite you to your wedding, or their wedding rather, or what they call as a wedding, right? Because I don't believe it's a wedding. It's a social union or a civil union, but it's not a wedding. The question that you're going to have to be challenged with is, are you going to prioritize your relationship with your Savior over your relationship with your child? Now, to be a little bit more transparent, because we got two more I want to cover, two more things that it's going to cost you, but I'm just going to be honest with you guys, because look, you always want me to kind of open up. Look, ever since I've taken a hard stance on some controversial issues over the past year, whether they may be social or theological or moral or even political at times, I'm just going to be honest that stance has put a strain on some of my most significant relationships. And guys, it's been hard. It's been hard. But this is what Jesus said would happen. So if you're experiencing this, let me just encourage you with this scripture. All right, Romans 12:18, it says this, if it is possible. So notice that Paul says it's not always possible to keep the peace. But then he says, as far as it depends on you, meaning you can't control what other people do, how they respond, whether they want to reconcile or whatnot. But if it's possible, it's not always possible. And as far as it depends on you, you can't control the other person. Live at peace with everyone. If you value these relationships that are being strained, do everything in your power that you can to mend them, to restore them, while at the same time recognizing that God may allow this rift in this relationship, and that may be a cost you have to endure for standing on the truth. So here's a second thing that standing on the truth may cost you, not just people, but it might cost you positions. When you stand for the truth, it may even cost you your career or career advancement opportunities. All right, let me explain. Guys, we are living in a time when you could easily get fired from your job for standing on what you believe is the truth. Now, before you go on there and think I'm saying something I'm not. I'm not suggesting that you storm into your job tomorrow morning and just go around calling everybody's sin out, or you have some big, sign or something like that. No. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about times when God may allow you to have conversations with people at your job, whether it may be in person or remotely or whatever, and certain topics come up. Certain things may come up. Maybe it's during lunch or whatnot. I don't know. But certain controversial things may come up. And you may be tempted in that moment to say, you know what? I should keep silent about this, because if I say something, it might get back to my boss. I know what my boss's political position is. I know that they're a little bit more this, a little bit more that, a little more liberal or whatever. And so you know what? The easy thing to do will be just to be quiet, because if I'm quiet, nobody will know what I'm saying, what I believe, what I stand for. And I'm going to be safe, and then I could possibly be considered for that promotion, that advanced opportunity or whatnot. That would be the easy way. But the question is that what we as Christians are called to do, to take the easy road out? Or would it be, hey, you know what? Here is an opportunity that God has given me, an inroad that I can possibly plant seeds within the minds of the people that I'm working with. And you know what? I have to trust God that if I stand for Him, it might cost me something now, but I'm going to be rewarded with something much greater later on. All right, let me make this personal for just a moment. So many of you may or may not know this, but I get asked to speak quite a bit at churches and conferences. And look, this is something I really, really enjoy doing. Like, I love all of it. Like, I love getting on the plane. I love traveling. I love staying in hotels. I love meeting new people. I love going to churches. I love speaking. I love being on the stage. Like, I love all of that. I do it quite a bit. But every single time I put out a controversial video, and this could be something doctrinal, it could be something moral, It could be something social or political or cultural. It doesn't matter. I know I run the risk of being canceled every time. Every time I talk about something controversial, there could be a church that has said, you know what? We planned on inviting Alan to be a speaker at our conference to speak about this. But now that Alan has taken a hard stance on this, and we don't necessarily see eye to eye with him, you know what? I think we're going to do something different, or we're going to, try someone else, or we're not going to bring Alan in. Listen, I know that. And I am willing to sleep at night knowing that, if I get canceled for speaking the truth, then you know what? The Lord has another opportunity out there for me. And I'm not going to shy away from speaking the truth because I'm afraid that I'm going to get canceled. And I want to encourage you to have that same boldness, even when it comes to your career, and trust that God will take care of you. Now, this third one is the one that is the most difficult. And that's not just the cost of people or relationships or positions, but pain, persecution. And this could come in many different forms. Maybe it's slander, right? People are saying things about you that are not true, maligning you, saying certain things that may negatively impact your reputation. Maybe people are attacking you. Maybe someone attacks you online. Maybe you make a comment on your social media, or you share something on your social media and you look at the post and the comments or whatever, and people are attacking you. They're slandering you. They're maligning you. They're speaking negatively about you, right? And that's persecution. That's pain to some degree. Maybe they leave a rude comment, or maybe in my case, they make a rude response video. It could even be threats. I've had some threats over the last 10 years. Yes, I haven't shared them with you, but I have. It could be physical violence, right? And this is once again where it becomes very difficult to be a Christian, particularly in our culture today, because you will be persecuted. Why? Because people don't want to be faced with the truth. They don't want you as a Christian coming around shedding light on their darkness. They would rather live in darkness. They don't want anyone coming and telling them that what they want to do with their life is wrong. And so when someone, i.e. you and I, comes along and points that out, people get triggered. And when people get triggered, they want to lash out in persecution. And we need to be ready for that. I've had to deal with this personally for years. People talk negatively about me. They spread negative rumors. They've made videos saying I've said this and said that when I didn't really say this and that. And it's tough, y'all. I'm not going to lie to you. It's tough. I'm not the only one. There's a lot of people online who have had this experience that I've talked to. And it's difficult because some of the people that are doing these things, they have significant followings. They have influence. And when you look at how many people they're influencing to think negatively about me and other people who are taking a stand for the truth, it's difficult. It can be difficult. So if and when this happens to you, I want to remind you of a few things, all right? If you are experiencing persecution of any kind in this season, I want to encourage you that you are in good company. Listen, when you think about the Old Testament prophets who spoke and were bold to share what God had put on their heart, many of them were imprisoned, they were stoned, they were maligned, they were persecuted, right? When you think about John the Baptist in the New Testament, here's a man who called out Herod. And he said, Herod, hey man, look, you can't divorce your wife so that you can marry your brother's wife. You can't do that, right? It's not right. And as a result of that, he ended up being beheaded. Stephen ended up being stoned for preaching the truth, and many others as well. So I hope and pray that your persecution doesn't look anything like the persecution that many of the Bible characters had to endure. But just remember, if it does, you're in good company. And I want to remind you of this as well. God blesses those who are persecuted for doing right, for the kingdom of heaven is theirs. Then it goes on to say, God blesses you when people mock you and persecute you and lie about you and say all sorts of evil things against you because you are my followers. But then the encouragement comes. He says, be happy about it. Be very glad, for a great reward awaits you in heaven. And remember, the ancient prophets were persecuted in the same way. Wow, God says, even though you may be persecuted down here, you will be rewarded up there. So my question to you as I close is, how would you right now rate your own level of courage? And this is something that I've had to deal with, and I've had to ask myself the same exact questions. How am I doing in this area of courage? How much do I consider, well, if I say this, I could risk this. Somebody might not like me there here. I might ruffle some feathers here. I might not get asked to speak at this church. I've had to ask myself those same questions. How willing am I to be bold and courageous in this time? So I want to remind you, as I remind myself, that no matter how difficult it may be and what it may cost you down here, it is worth it, Jesus said. In other words, standing for the truth may cost you here, but it will crown you there. Be bold, be courageous, and trust God every step of the way. I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.